A new era is upon us. Tangent PropTech unites founders, real estate and VC investors, urban leaders, and passionate creators who are improving our communities and cities. Join venture capitalists Jeffrey Berman and Zach Aarons and PropTech entrepreneur Edward Cohen, that's me, to learn about housing innovation, the future of work, and climate tech. We examine these themes through interviews and conversations with PropTech CEOs, real estate owners and operators, and venture investors, and how we can leverage tech and collaboration to help solve the housing crisis, figure out the future of work, and how to decarbonize the built environment. If you would like to get your company's or organization's mission featured on Tangent, email us at tangentcommunity@gmail.com. Hi, I'm Edward Cohen. Welcome to Blueprint Has Gone Off on a Tangent. Today on Tangent, we have Eli Harris, multi-time climate tech founder and launching now new companies through One Dream Ventures. Hi, Eli. How is Blueprint treating you?
My first time here and I'm loving it. Thank you for having me. It really means a lot. I appreciate the opportunity.
No, thank you to Blueprint and everyone at the team, Martin, David, Vic, Parker. Certainly appreciate you having us here. So Eli, you're a multi-time founder, founded companies in climate tech, and your previous companies have raised now over $200 million. But curious, how did you get here? I mean, how did you get to launching now new companies in climate tech?
It hasn't been a very linear path. I actually started my career on the foreign service track, and I did a couple of Fulbrights in mainland China and spent most of my 20s in mainland China. I think I was a little rosy-eyed naive, and I thought working foreign service, I could help shape a future that I believed in. And I didn't realize that we have a fiduciary duty to a national mandate. But I love being in China. I speak Chinese fluently, and I'm very proud of that because I've worked very hard many years of my life. And I actually stumbled my way into DJI, and that's where I started my technology career. DJI is the world's largest manufacturer of consumer and commercial drones. And I was helping them when they were first going mass market, figure out how do they implement drones into commercial verticals. So drone use in agriculture, public safety, utility inspections, and various verticals. One of the big issues was battery life. If you're taking selfies on the beach, flying for 20 minutes is great. If you're looking for a missing person, battery life becomes a much more sensitive issue, a much more critical issue. China was at the forefront of lithium-ion battery manufacturing, and I went down the rabbit hole. And I became obsessed with some of China's manufacturing capabilities and technology development of larger lithium-ion battery packs. We saw the whole world moving from fuel combustion to electric, but there was kind of a gap in the market with these portable but yet substantial mobile energy storage systems. So I actually spun out of DJI with 2 engineers from DJI, and I was the founding CEO of EcoFlow, which was my first venture. I was 23 when I founded it. I was the CEO for the first 3.5 years through our Series A, and I had a small exit. We were manufacturing kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery packs that could be stacked in series for mobile energy storage and energy use, as well as home backup power. And that was an incredible journey. At the end of 2019, I had a small exit. A lot of woulda, coulda, shouldas about what I could do differently now with all of my learnings, but it was just a wonderful experience. The company's now actually doing over $1 billion in revenue.
Wow.
And over 100 million EBITDA, and they're on track to go public.
That's fascinating. I mean, going from 0 to 1 in such a critical technology, and not only a critical technology, but being in the cradle. China has really paved the way in battery technology, and in a way I can blame the US for quote unquote sleeping on it, because we achieved energy independence through the fossil fuels and other energy technologies. I mean, the fact that you were there and you saw it firsthand, I think it unique experience and advantage now that you bring it here in America.
Yeah, I think especially the first 20 years of since 2000, China's really doubled down on energy, AI, and biotech, and that's changing now. But there's really throughout the 2000s and 2010s, it was an extremely exciting time to be working there in that space. It still is, but I'm very grateful I got to ride that wave and create some value. And unfortunately, don't get to capture all the value from what EcoFlow has become, but very proud of that legacy.
I think that's a very very mature approach, and it shows that you're mission driven here. The dollars are important, but you care about making an impact and driving innovation.
Yeah.
So I think that's inspiring.
Yeah.
But that hasn't been your only successful 0 to 1, has it?
I came back to the States at the end of 2019. In early 2020, I launched a company called R0 with two co-founders, Grant Morgan and Ben Boyer, doing healthy buildings infrastructure. So very much inspired by the pandemic and looking through how we can make indoor air quality safer and use technologies like sensors to automate how we move air through buildings and create for safer indoor environments. We ended up raising $171 million in 2.5 years.
Wow.
And grew the team very quickly. And I think we're one of the fastest growing companies with a hardware component in the pandemic environment. So that was an incredibly exciting journey. We raced through our Series C in 2.5 years. And after the Series C, both Grant and I transitioned out of the company. I think that managing a company with a balance sheet that large and an organization that big is a very different skill set than taking a company from 0 to 1 in the first 10 million in revenue.
Absolutely. I think you clearly know where your expertise is, where your passion is, where you've created value, and that's what got you to today, where you're helping launch companies through One Dream Ventures. So can you tell us about the first company you're launching?
Yeah, the first company we're launching, still to be named, calling it NewCo in stealth mode here. It's been really exciting, but it's a AI co-pilot for submittal reviews for general contractors. So on large construction projects, architects will work with the owners and they'll put out a spec. And on a large project, that can be hundreds and hundreds of pages, many divisions, and then general contractors work with their subs to put together submittal packages against those specs, which dictate everything that's going to go into a project.
Yep.
And currently, a lot of that is happening very manually. There's been great digitization in workflow management through groups like Procore and Autodesk Construction Cloud, but there's not many tools that help actually do the work to review and implement both in the planning and the implementation of construction projects. So what we're doing is we're building a tool that can actually ingest the master contract, the specs, and the submittals, and analyze them, and actually augment the human workflow and annotate the submittals to help people review them more efficiently, as well as identify any data discrepancies and catch errors before they show up in the field.
Right, because when these errors show up in the field, it means that they poured concrete in the wrong place or the wrong amount of concrete, or...
Procore's put out some interesting data that shows that on large construction projects, 28% of the overall budget ends up being rework.
28%, that's almost a third of the budget that just goes on, is it human errors?
And on these large projects, that's a lot of dollars.
That's a lot of dollars.
And it can take months to reconcile the submittals against the specs. I mean, the submittal packages can be thousands of pages. And currently, folks pull them up on screens, and you go line by line, and you look at the critical items, and you go, Control F and make sure, do these items reconcile and do they match? And these are really dense documents and project drawings, and there's a lot of footnotes and environmental data and regulatory data that's usually captured but sometimes implied. And oftentimes it's, newer PMs and PEs who are actually reviewing these docs. And this is a means by which they build experience, but don't always have the experience yet. So anything we can do to, 1, save labor hours, but 2, make it an instructional process, and 3, mitigate errors. There's a huge potential upside in rework savings. And I think, the submittals are the kind of canonical source of truth of a construction project. And with that data, we can start moving into other aspects of pre-construction as well as closeout.
This episode is brought to you in collaboration with Blueprint, the future of real estate. A few weeks ago, in September, Jeff and I participated in the largest, most global gathering of industry leaders and innovators leading the charge in changing the built environment, from construction to transaction, for 3 days of networking, learning, and ecosystem advancement in Las Vegas. With trillions of dollars of assets and the best global innovators under one roof, the future of the built world happens at Blueprint. Blueprint 2025 will take place at the Venetian Las Vegas from September 16th to 18th. Learn more and enjoy the interest list at blueprintvegas.com. That's blueprintvegas.com. See y'all there. first company, super exciting. NewCo, where are you in the process?
So we're still pre-incorporation. And one of my beliefs in my two startup journeys is that a lot of folks end up incorporating early before they've really validated that there's a company to be built here and that there is sufficient demand signals, that it is feasible, and that you have product market fit. So what we're trying to do through One Dream Ventures is we're working with one entrepreneur at a time and launching one company at a time. And we're actually investing a lot of time and money pre-incorporation to validate, is this a real problem? What is the ideal customer profile? What's the quantified value prop? What does the MVP look like? Is it technically feasible? How do we price and package it? We've actually already talked to hundreds of general contractors, and we have a handful of the largest GCs in the country who we're signing up as design partners to really help inform this product.
Yeah.
And we still haven't incorporated, and we have full mock-ups. We've done the tech feasibility. We have some of the largest GCs in the nation who are signing up to be pilot customers and help the development journey. And only at this point are we getting ready to spin out the company and take on external capital. Because we really want to make sure that when we spin this out, it is de-risked and there is built-in demand that we've already pre-marketed to investors that who are already offering to write term sheets and lead this funding. So we want to do as much of that work up front so we know if we spin this out, this is real.
That's fascinating. I mean, you're almost flipping the script here in terms of how to dictate a roadmap from, because you're working with already the potential users of the company, of the service. I think that shows discipline and shows also humility, which I think is something that should be more celebrated in our industry.
Those are kind words, thank you. But I think it would be arrogant and naive to assume that we can come up with lightning strike ideas on our own. I think the goal is to solve problems for existing customers or solve problems for partners.
Yeah. So to that point, what advice would you give founders building their proof of concepts and their MVPs?
Yeah, I guess I would say make sure you're solving a real problem and make sure that you have demand signals and traction and make sure that people are willing to pay for the value you're delivering. And then understand what is the value you're delivering and what is the propensity to pay. And before you spin out a company, before you take on external capital, before you commit 7 to 10 years of your life, make sure you're actually solving a real problem.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, and if you're gonna fail it fast and then move on to the next iteration of it or move on from that problem.
Yeah.
It's not a real problem or not as painful that people are willing to pay for it.
Yeah. And if you can solve a problem that people are willing to pay for and you can stay capitally efficient and you can build a good business, you will have options. If you're solving customers' problems and if they're part of that process, you're likely an acquisition target. So as we build the network of partners, I imagine a lot of our companies will actually be exited quite early to these partners that we design and build with and for. And I think that it's a more risk-averse approach to innovation is to find those partners that you can build with and for and make sure that solution is horizontally applicable and not constrained to a single user.
From the investment side, I mean, how have you convinced investors in the past and, currently, how would you convince investors of long-term viability of prop tech and climate tech?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two classes of climate tech. So one is deep tech, which can be very capital intensive, very long R&D cycles, and require a huge barrier to entry in terms of change management and adoption. But I think that McKinsey put out a report that said 70% of the technology that we need for a net zero future already exists. And what's missing is all the technology, services, products, and softwares to help deploy it and to maintain it.
Very interesting.
So I think that there's a tremendous opportunity looking at technologies that do exist today and are commercially viable, and how do we help with the adoption, maintenance, or some of the what we call the picks and shovels businesses around those technologies. And that's what we're largely focused on.
Eli, collaboration superpower. If you could pick one person, historic or living, to do a partnership with, who would it be?
That's a great question. I have an answer for you, and I'll probably change my mind later. That's a big question.
Yeah.
But a book I just read was A Creative Act, The Way of Being by Rick Rubin. And he talks a lot about creating authentically in this universe.
Okay.
And I really appreciate a lot of the anecdotes in that book about creativity and creation.
Yeah.
And signals from the universe and to inform that creativity.
Okay.
Shit.
Signals of the universe, like a spiritual way, or more like a trend spotting, or
It kind of blends both objective data and some sense of spirituality.
okay. Serendipity.
Yeah, and I admire him, and I love music, and he's somebody I'd like to learn from. In the context of One Dream Ventures, what that partnership would look like, I'm not sure, but I really enjoyed that read, and that's an individual that came to mind who I'd love to learn how to marry the authentic creativity with solving real existing problems in the world. And I think that would be a nice marriage.
Eli Harris, multi-time climate tech founder and founding new companies with One Dream Ventures. Thank you so much for coming today to Blueprint Goes Off on a Tangent.
Thank you for having me.
If you like what you heard, please subscribe, rate, and review Tangent, and share the show with a friend. This episode is produced by me, Edward Cohen. Thanks for listening to Tangent PropTech, and remember, collaboration is our superpower. So stay curious and always be learning.